In the summer of 22, we shipped our van from the UK to Canada to begin a trip that will eventually take us down to Argentina on the Pan-American Highway. How did we ship it? Was it easy? If you're wondering what the logistics and costs are of shipping your van across continents, you're about to find out. Since we shipped our van to Canada, by far the most asked question is, how much did it cost you and what are the logistics of shipping your van over? So that is what we're going to cover in today's video. We're going to get straight into it because there's quite a lot to cover. Should we get started?
Let's go for it.
So as many of you will know, our plan is to drive a camper van from Canada all the way to Argentina. So before we could even think about shipping the van over here, we needed to make sure that we could stay here for long enough to do that drive. So first things first was to make sure we had visas for Canada and America. Now with Canada, as UK citizens, we get 6 months visa free. We do have to do a electronic travel authorization like the ETA, costs about $7. We don't intend to be in Canada for longer than 6 months, so that works perfectly for us. However, for America, we only get 3 months visa free as a tourist, and we just don't think that would be enough to do the trip that we want to do. So for the US, we really needed an extended tourism visa, which is otherwise known as a B2 visa. So the process for getting the B2 visa involved an online application, which was quite lengthy and asks about your work and what else did it ask for?
Travel family.
Stuff, yeah, all sorts of things. And then after you've filled in that application, you book an interview at the US Embassy in London, which we did back in May, and you just basically go and have a face-to-face in-person interview, and they will decide whether or not you're eligible for that B2 visa. We got ours, we found out on the day, and that was the first step in shipping the van over, because without that visa, this trip probably wouldn't really be possible. No, yeah. So it would be really rushed at best. So yeah, that was the first thing, and that cost £160 each, and I think we paid about 20 quid extra to have our passports posted back to us securely. So all in all, about £200 each for the US visa.
Now that we had successfully got the B2 visa for the States, we had to make sure we could get insurance for the van. The shipping company we use, IVSS, they provided us a list of companies that could potentially insure us. We went with a company called Thumb, and they gave us a year policy which covers us for both Canada and the US for £2,000, and that includes being fully comp and medical expenses as well if needed.
They also cover Mexico, and we can get that close to the time of us heading into Mexico.
Yeah. When we spoke to them, we said we were heading down to Mexico, and they said, don't worry about sorting that now, do that close to the time, it'll make more sense, and you get that as a separate policy then.
Yeah, £2,000 for insurance. So then it came to physically shipping the van. Now there are generally two main ways that you can ship a vehicle. One is in a container, so it gets loaded onto the container, secured in there, and then it goes on the ship. The other option is called roll-on, roll-off, or Ro-Ro, and that is where your vehicle gets driven onto the ship. Ro-Ro is normally for vehicles that are too big to fit into a container, and Sophia, our van, is too big for a container, so we did roll-on, roll-off shipping. So with roll-on, roll-off shipping, because your vehicle gets driven on to the ship, there is a high risk of like petty theft happening and people being able to get into your van. It's just an unfortunate nature of how the vans and the vehicles get loaded onto the ship. It's actually nothing to do with the shipping company. So the shipping company that you use, they're more like broker agents to get you onto the ship, and lots of companies will use the same ship, and then your van will just get shipped with the rest of the vehicles, most of them commercial probably. So your vehicle doesn't go to the shipping company, kept really secure, and they take it. It's kind of put onto the port, isn't it, with everything else, and it is unfortunate that it does happen, but it is just the nature of it. Because vehicles are open, if you have personal items in there, there is quite a high chance that some of them will go missing. Happens to quite a lot of people.
When we dropped our van off in Southampton, we dropped it off at the port 9 I think it was. There was our van, there were 2 ambulances, there were about 6 tractors, 10 or so arm reach things. There was
that massive quarry lorry. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's a huge quarry lorry. It's not just like personal vehicle. There's a whole raft of different vehicles.
But there are ways that you can mitigate it, and one of the main ways is securing the back of your vehicle where obviously most of your things will be. So for us, from the very beginning of our build, we made the decision to block off the cab and the living area so we don't have a walk through. And that means that we do have a hatch that lets us get in and out of the front if we need to, but we can block that off, and that's exactly what we did, didn't we? So we blocked off the hatch so that nobody could get into the back from the front, and we also deadlocked the van. I know that some of you will ask, well, do customs not need to see inside the van? Do they not want access into the van? And we did come up with a solution for that, which Ben will talk about in a bit. But that's just to give you some context of our shipping. We did roll on roll off shipping. There are security issues with that, just bear that in mind. If you have a vehicle that you can walk through, or if you have a hatch that you can board up, even better.
The shipping company we went with was IVSS, and they're a really well-known shipping company, and the quote was really good. I asked IVSS if it was okay to deadlock the back of the van. They said that's no problem at all. Customs might need to get in it though. So what we did is we put a key safe in the front and bolted that all in, and left the deadlock key in the little key safe, and only the shipping company, only IVSS, had access to that code. So nobody at the port, nobody on the ship, or nobody on the arriving port had access to that, so nobody could get in the back, which was great. So once we agreed to go with IVSS, they provided us with the dates that we were able to ship. We chose a given date. And once the ship departed, they sent us all the paperwork, so the bill of landing, the shipping note, and that was all ready for us to then take to customs in Canada when we arrived to pick up the van.
They even provided us with like maps on where to go and drop the van off, and all of that was kind of taken care of, so it was a pretty straightforward process, wasn't it, Dave? It was quite...
Yeah, they provided us with a map for the specific port for where the ship was, and for which port we would need to pick it up from. So everything was really straightforward. So the cost for that, for the shipping, was £3,302. And that's the most expensive thing, shipping the van.
Yeah, and the dogs, but... The ship takes about 10 days to get over to Halifax. We did experience delays of about 2 weeks. It is pretty common to experience delays on shipping. Something to bear in mind, that delays are pretty common. It's often just due to shipping ports around the world and the actual ship getting kind of delayed coming back in. So yeah, it is quite common. Just bear that in mind. If you are wanting to get across for a certain date, just give yourself plenty of time. Don't leave it like the 2 weeks before. So once we knew the van had shipped, that's when we booked our flights. We booked our flights with Air Transat and we went into Montreal, and you might be wondering, why didn't you go into Halifax? That is going to come in a different video because we flew with the 2 dogs, and that brought its own set of complications and costs, which we are going to do in a completely different video about flying with the dogs, traveling with the dogs and all of that. But for now, we flew with Air Transat to Montreal. It was a direct flight, and that cost us £2,335 for the both of us. That was in the middle of the summer holidays, and also in the middle of all of that chaos that was happening at the airport. So this summer, it was just going manic. There was like Heathrow, like half their passenger numbers. It was like almost like the airports are going into meltdown. Yeah,
and there was also with Transat's flex booking, so that we could cancel, rearrange.
We also wanted to get extra baggage because we were going to be taking over more than just our clothes. We were bringing over a lot of things that we didn't want to risk getting stolen in here, so we had basically 2 massive bags each.
We magically got from Montreal to Halifax, where the van was ready to pick up. When we arrived in Halifax, we arrived Thursday night. The shipping company recommend that it takes 2 to 3 days to get your paperwork and the van released from customs. So we arrived late Thursday night, so we thought Friday, let's just have a relaxing day because we've just flown from the UK, we've got the dogs, so Friday was just a chill day. Monday happened to be a bank holiday, so we had to wait till Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, I headed over to the customs, which is just outside of Halifax, nowhere near the port. And I had to get something called a wet stamp, and that was just a rubber stamp on the bill of landing that we had, which I'd then have to take to the port to allow the van to be released. So we headed to customs. I was there for 5 minutes, just had to show the shipping note, the bill of landing, my V5 or the vehicle registration document, because it won't be a V5 in every country, my passport, and then they just asked me some basic questions about what the van is, what's in there, is there any food. 5 minutes, had the stamp. Then I had to ring the port, which had all the contact information on the bill of landing, to arrange releasing the van. Now they said that it was going to take 2 to 3 days. I rang them and they said, oh, you can come down and get it now if you want. Well, we'd already had stuff planned, so we couldn't. We left it to the next day, but drove down the next day, took the bill of landing, handed it over, they photocopied it, opened the large gate, went through.
There she was.
There she was.
And we...
Keys on the seat, ready to go. Perfect.
What about port fees?
Yes, yeah. So when we shipped the van, unfortunately Chess's dad passed away, so we had to postpone flying out by 2 weeks. So it meant that Sophia was sat on the port for nearly 3 weeks. The shipping company said that the first 5 days on the arrival port are free. After that, then there's a charge between $10 to $20 a day, which is no problem. I got there and they were like, no, it's fine. So there was no extra port fees, which we thought there would be for probably for a 2 week wait. We thought it would be sort of $200-300.
Yeah.
But no, there was nothing at all, which was nice. It was a nice surprise.
Everything's been pretty stress-free and it's been a very straightforward process.
There's been no hiccups, no concerns, no worries.
There hasn't been a lot of like...
Nothing at all. Apart from the fact that it was delayed, but that was out of everyone's control. So.
No bureaucratic like paperwork, loads of red tape. We literally just dropped Sophia off, picked her up, could have picked her up the same day, stamped, done, be gone. So it was really nice and straightforward. And when we picked Sophia up, she started straight away, not a problem.
She was in perfect condition, no dents, no knocks, had all her doors.
Yep, and the deadlock situation had worked. As Ben said, we've got the deadlock key and a key lock in the front. People had tried to get into the back of the van because when the deadlocks are on and the van is unlocked, if you try and open it, it just kind of takes it off a tiny bit. There's a little bit of a tiny,
it just
like,
doesn't
5
line
mil
up.
wiggle or something.
You just know somebody's tried to open the door. Oh, can't get in.
Couldn't get in. So they had tried to, but they weren't able to, which was amazing. And that was the biggest relief. As long as that was like okay, then we were okay. The electrics had been obviously turned off the whole trip and turned them back on.
Yep, everything fired up first time.
We booked into a campsite for the first 3-4 nights just to get everything unpacked, sorted, empty our suitcases, and just get back to living in the van again and just getting her in a livable state again. And after that, we have been on the road ever since.
Exactly, yeah.
And have been around Canada, so
all in all, for our visas, for our van insurance, for our shipping, and for our flights, the grand total was £7,967.
In all fairness, that was a lot more than I thought it would be.
That doesn't include the dogs. As Chess said, we'll do that separately because that had a whole raft of like complications.
There's a lot to unpack when traveling with the dogs.
Yes, yeah. So we'll do that in a separate flying, shipping up.
Flying with the dogs.
Flying with the dogs, yeah.
I imagine also our flights were a little bit more expensive, maybe because of the time of year that we travelled. We needed to have certain flights with the dogs, which we will go into detail with on another video. You may be able to get your flights for a bit cheaper, but generally speaking, the rest of those costs were pretty standard, weren't they?
Yeah.
Although the cost of the shipping depends on the size of your vehicle. So if you've got a much smaller van and you can get a container, it might be a bit different. And if you've got a massive Unimog that you're shipping,
yeah, exactly.
A little bit more.
8 meters and whatever height it was £3,000. Yeah, if you've got a big, massive thing, obviously it's going to be more expensive. But for us, it was £3,302.
So I hope that's been useful for some of you who are also interested in shipping your van abroad. Obviously, this is shipping from the UK to Canada. The costs, the documentation, the process may change depending on what country you ship to.
Yes.
So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, but it just gives you a rough idea of the things you at least need.
Yeah, and the rough process of what it takes to ship the van.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we found it to be straightforward, and yeah, would definitely recommend it.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments.
Yep.
And we'll get back to you.
Yep.
Scott's licking the table leg.
He's not licking it, he's eating it.
Hey.
He's literally got his mouth around the table. Should I start that again?
Yes, slow down a bit.
I'm just excited.
I know.
Do you want to stop? Could you stop it and then?
Fuck you now. What are you trying to say?
I know what I'm trying to say.
Well,
There's just
say it.
words aren't coming out in the right order.
Slowly, chilled, relaxed.
Down America and into Argentina eventually.
What is it, a submarine, is it?